Greetings and welcome to this communion of minds. Today I'm delighted to welcome to our midst a friend of mine whom I have come in recent times to cherish very dearly. I have already introduced him to you. His name is Johnson KOTTARAM. He resides in Canada and he shared with me his reflections on a passage in the book or the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verses 13 to 21. And as usual, I was greatly delighted to enjoy and benefit from his reflections. And since I found his insights very precious, I thought I should extend that delight to all of you. It's good to share the good things in our midst. And therefore, let me begin by reading out the text Johnson has sent to me. When the barns are full, but the soul feels empty. That's the title. When the barns are full, the soul feels empty. The title itself is significant. I'm now going to read the text without any intermission. In Luke's parable, the man isn't wicked. He's not exploiting the poor or destroying the planet. He's simply doing what makes sense. He plants, he stores, he builds bigger barns to make room for a more profitable future. And why not? He has had a good harvest. He wants to secure his future. His retirement plan is in place. He wants to eat, drink, travel, and be merry. Isn't that what all of us want someday? But then comes the interruption. You fool. This very night your life will be demanded of you. Not judged, not condemned, just demanded. As if life was on load, as if meaning can be stored or relived. We can store many things in life, grain, money, books, even memories, but meaning isn't one of them. Meaning doesn't sit on a shelf or rest quietly in a file. It isn't what we preserve or protect. It's what we experience, respond to, and give away. You can have a room full of books and still feel no sense of wonder. You can have decades of ministry behind you and still feel spiritually dry. Because meaning isn't cumulative. It doesn't grow in storage. It only comes alive when we risk stepping into the present. Meaning reveals itself in a conversation that stirs us, in a quiet act of kindness, in a moment of shared silence. It moves like breath. You can't cap it. You can only welcome it as it passes through. So maybe the real question isn't, what have I stored? But what has passed through me that makes someone else's life lighter? Because meaning in the end is not what you save, it's what you are willing to spend fully, freely before the night comes. We often assume this parable is about money, but many of us, especially those who have lived long and faithfully, the barns we have built aren't full of grain. They're full of accomplishments, roles we have played, titles held, ideas defended, books read, certainties we clung to. Even our theology at times becomes just another storage unit, a way to shield ourselves from the ache of unknowing. But meaning is not something we collect, it's something we inhabit, and the tragedy of the rich man is not that he was greedy, but that he mistook accumulation for aliveness. We all do it. We build schedules, reputations, expectations. We store up knowledge, influence, status. Even humility can be hoarded, strangely enough. He who dies with the most toys still dies. And sometimes the barns we build so carefully become mausoleums, shrines to a version of ourselves that no longer exists. We often assume significance lies in what's celebrated, monuments, titles, published works, but history tells a different story. Consider Irina Sendler, a Polish social worker, alone in secrecy, saved over 2,500 children from the Holocaust. No fanfare, no plaques, but for those who lives, but for those lives, she was everything. Meaning didn't live in barns or institutions, but in her daily choice to risk everything for someone else's breath. There is a story I return to often. An aging porter was visited by a monk. In the corner of the porter's dusty workshops had a chipped clay cup of old, misshapen, clearly used. The monk asked, "Why do you keep this broken thing?" The porter smiled, lifted it gently, and said, "When I was young, I made perfect cups, but they were too pretty to use. This one, it's flawed, but I drink from it every day. It holds water, it does its job. No one is afraid to touch it." And then he added something I never forget. Funny, isn't it? The cup became useful only after it stopped trying to be perfect. Maybe that's the real call in this parable. Not to die with full barns, but with an empty cup. Used, poured out, real. Because the real spiritual journey is not to collect, but to unburden. Not to hold on, but to open up. Not to impress, but to become human. To be more human is to release the need to be untouchably strong. To be more open is to let life surprise you again, even at 70 or 80. To be more alive is not to be busy or productive, but present, fully, quietly, reverently present. That's what the barn can't hold, but the chipped cup can. Do I have a secret story unknown to the barn, known only to my soul, about having poured out for others? Because life is not about building perfect containers. It's about learning slowly, humbly to hold water and to let it go. Let me repeat the last words. Because life is not about building perfect containers. It's about learning slowly, humbly to hold water and to let it go. So that's what it is. So, first of all, I want to thank Johnson for sharing his reflections with me. So, Johnson, as I was considering this text, I thought that perhaps you have three focal points. And I'm trying to sort of simplify and systematize this so that our friends who listen to this can remember and latch on to something. I think, first of all, you raised the question about foolishness. And obviously, the second point thereafter, which is the idea of meaning. So, from foolishness to meaning, particularly the meaning of life. Third, of course, is the implied idea that it's fatal and fatally foolish to live unmindful of the meaning of life. Now, have I missed anything significant? If I have, can you please bring it to the notice of our viewers?
Yeah, that is pretty much what I have been trying to say. That it is not accumulating of various stuffs in life, be it material or be it degrees or qualifications or positions. These are all good, okay, but what ultimately counts in terms of real life is the meaning that we are able to live in our life.
Yeah.
For me personally, if I can say, all this came into place when suddenly it happened a few years back in our neighborhood. All the houses, the basement got flooded because the sewer system backed up, and it was a major issue. And my basement also got flooded with this dirty water, and I had lots of books, some of those books which I had brought even from India, and over the years collected for various different types of ministry that I was using it, and it was heart-rending affair to watch this all floating in this dirty water. And that is a time then I had to throw away all of those stuff that I had stored, accumulated over the years.
Yeah.
And then the thought struck me, did I store it and did I ever live any of those things? It is this that really triggered my reflection today in this that I have. It happened to be the reading in the Catholic lectionary, the Sunday reading this Sunday. So that is how I started on this reflection. Accumulation does not lead us to real meaning in life.
Now, suppose
That is the central point.
one of our friends asks you, Mr. Johnson, what's the problem with acquiring and hoarding the good things of life? After all, there is this very strong idea among Christians that material blessings also reflect God's favor to you.
Correct. Yeah. Even the prosperity gospel preachers, they emphasize on that.
It's very much an Old Testament idea. God blesses his favorite persons with material prosperity. Yeah, that's right. So if you think of one very prominent example from history in the 12th century of St. Francis of Assisi, that time the church was so powerful and they had layers of theology so precise, and they had everything worked out. The wealth was not an issue. It is in the midst of this that St. Francis comes up and he denounces everything that the church held as uppermost at that time: the wealth, the power, the qualification. St. Francis, he did not even complete his basic education, except whatever his parents made him learn, read and write, and maybe under some tutors, something. But apart from that, he never went to university, he never went to college, nowhere. It is only something that he read by himself, he reflected, learned from the life of Jesus. So it is pointing to Jesus' life that really brought the education that he lived out. And that is what I'm trying to live out in my personal life. But of course, I have not succeeded like St. Francis. But the direction is there. That's all in my place, in my regard. So it is clear that your direction is right, Johnson. Otherwise, you wouldn't have generated this wealth that we all can share in our midst. Please carry on. Please carry on.
I know.
You wanted to say something more?
No, it is.
Okay, now in that case, let me add a further thought. You see, the context in which Jesus provides this parable is that of the question or the request or demand made by one of the persons in the crowd that he was teaching, that Jesus should intervene in a domestic quarrel. He had a quarrel with his brother regarding how inherited property should be divided between them. He says, Master commands my brother to divide the property between us. And then Jesus says, who has made me an adjudicator between you and your brother? And then he cautions him, saying that the life of a man doesn't consist in the abundance of his possessions. And then he gives this parable in order to illustrate it. So would I be right in saying that the problem in hoarding that Jesus is here sort of unveiling or alluding to a parable is that when we fill our lives with material things, we are so crowded within that it doesn't leave any space for either God or neighbor. After all, the two cardinal commandments are love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. The second is like unto the first, love your neighbor as yourself. So all that goes out through the window if we fill our life with material things. So basically, it's not a problem about abundance per se, but the problem in not being able to handle abundance with spiritual vision and maturity, letting material abundance so crowd our life that it doesn't leave space for anyone else, anything else. What would you?
Yeah, it is very correct. At the same time, it is so easy to say it is correct, but the line between the space between the two extremes is so narrow that you can slip into the other so easily,
Yeah.
without goods, without accumulation of certain qualities. All these are absolutely necessary, yet they can become so easily deviating or make you deviate from that the real meaning, because of this accumulation of wealth or power or positions. So the problem we all face is the balancing act. We are on the fence, and any moment we can fall this way or that way. The moment we are able to see the distinction, we are already in the right direction. That is what I feel.
Okay.
Not everybody succeeds, but to see the difference is very, very important, and which unfortunately I think most of our folks don't realize it, that there are two sides to this.
Yeah.
And if you don't see the meaning part of it, then all your life can become seemingly useless.
Yeah. Now, let me put it somewhat differently, Johnson. Maybe we can look at this situation in order to be little more clearer about it, in terms of the tension or the harmony between means and ends. See, what happens here is that the land of a man brings forth plenty, and whatever the land brought forth was meant to be seen and used as the means to live. So suddenly, because of the plenty, and because he did not have wisdom and the maturity to handle it, he turns means into ends. So suddenly everything else evaporates from the radar of his life. It's only he, his barns, and his corn, and he begins virtually to live for them. The scope of his life is now reduced to living in order to consume whatever he has hoarded up. So there is a very lamentable reduction in the scope of his life as he understands it now. So the problem essentially is reducing or exalting means to ends, which then become our idols. So our material prosperity can become our idol, as you say, our reputation, whatever we have achieved in this world. If that's all that is left in our life, and there is no space in our life for anyone else, then we turn all these acquisitions into our idols, and that seriously corrupts the very quality of our life. Would you agree with this?
Correct. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So, in fact, I am actually, thinking about these questions over and over again within me. Not that I am absolutely sure of anything at the moment, but definitely I am thinking in this line and trying to see how best to go with both these ideas. One is that we need this, without which we cannot proceed in life, and secondly, the fact that when we become, like what you said, over and above, we have stored, and then the end has become, this hoarding in itself has become my life's accomplishment, and which has foregone the need to live a life that really satisfies my own yearning or what I believe to be right. Yeah. So this conflict is a thing that is confusing me as well as many people, I guess.
Yeah, Johnson, in this context, can we now think of the Beatitudes, the first of the Beatitudes, which of course has, as you know, two different versions. Matthew's version is different from Luke's version. But Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, whereas in Luke's version, blessed are the poor. So let's take Luke's version, because after all, we have taken this story from Luke's gospel. So what would be the blessedness in being poor? Whereas the idea that's prevalent among everyone, including Christians, is that poverty is a curse. In this passage, in this parable, it seems that prosperity also can be a curse.
So this poverty that Luke is talking about, that if you look at it in a different way, it's impossible to be poor. If we want to live a good life, we need, materials. We need various types of technical knowledge, various types of knowledge to acquire in order to live a full life. So poverty, as Luke mentions, what I understand is anything more than what you require, what you need to have a comfortable life. So that would be considered as what you call, if you don't have that, that would be poverty. That sort of poverty, I don't think anybody would like to have. When you have over and above those things, yes, that is the time when we have to take a second look at, am I really, is my wealth serving me? Is my knowledge serving me? The real end that I am looking for of being, giving myself to for the sake of others, or what my conscience is telling me in today's context, in whatever way in which one is placed. Like me, I am a retired person. I don't have much of social activities now, just staying home, taking care of normal chores, garden work and all that. But even in this, how do I spend each activity? With what sort of attitude am I living it? So I can be bitter, I can be dissatisfied, or I can be happy, I can be wondering, I can be curious at every moment as to what the moment is going to bring to me. And so that is a very, very interesting life as I see it, and that to me is living a very simple spiritual life. So now, that is the go ahead.
Now, in order to bring another dimension into our discussion, let me refer to the 6th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus talks about gathering for ourselves treasures in heaven. So here, the problem is not with hoarding or gathering, or so it seems. The problem is with what we want to gather. What would you say about that?
So what we gather for heaven, my idea about heaven and hell is very different from what normally people think about it. But for me, the spiritual life of every activity that I do brings me, or when I do it with an attitude that is open, which is going out to help others or other situations, that brings me joy. And that is the treasure that I am building for myself. I call it treasure, in terms of what the scripture says, or in terms of what other people say. But for me, it is a basic satisfaction with which I continue my life, giving meaning to or giving a presence to myself. So that is the virtue that I call. I'm not referring to virtues of all the other 7 or 8, 9 virtues of what the scripture says. Maybe true, fine, but for me, as of now, simple things in life, when I do it with the correct attitude, and I am happy, satisfied, and I don't hurt anybody else, that is a virtuous life in itself.
Let's look at it in a slightly different light, quite related but slightly different. We can acquire 2 different kinds of things. The first is what we have seen in this parable, a man gathering the produce, his agricultural produce in big barns and living on them for the rest of his life. That is, whatever he has gathered has a reference only to himself. The other type, the other possible type of hoarding is gathering treasures that are of help or relevance or means of enrichment for others also, so that God's blessings become the bridge between you and your neighbor, you and your society, etc., etc., which also then ties up with Jesus' idea that you are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So the difference is one of intent, purpose, and scope, where you're rich unto yourself. In the second instance, you want to be rich for the sake of the world, for the sake of those around you, for the sake of your society, maybe for the sake of your church, your fellowship, even your family. Because in the fifth chapter of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus says, "Let your light shine and give light to all in the house." Let the light of your personality give light to all in the house. I mean, that's as fundamental as that. So, am I right in saying that every person who is spiritually sensitive, spiritually alive, you use that word aliveness, and I was very, very happy about when you say that meaning is not about accumulation, but about aliveness. So, so the light of your personality must illumine your own home first. Then, of course, the world around you. You're the light of the world, right? So, I think it's a very, very important responsibility and a challenge given to us through the vision of Jesus Christ, that each one of us is obliged to develop our personality in such a manner that something of enduring value passes through us into the life of others. How would you respond to this?
Yeah, so I am speaking with respect to the present lifestyle that I'm having. Okay, yes. So for me, as I told you, I don't have much association outside. Most of the time, I'm home doing the normal chores of life, reading, reflecting, and all that. So for me, this life-giving thing is the ideas that I develop within myself from having read, from having reflecting, or looking at the life of Jesus. I'm putting together all this into my life, and then I'm making a statement for myself. Yes, I need to be like this, and I need to be compassionate. I need to be non-judgmental. I need to have a kind look towards the neighbors. They may be irritating. They may be doing something which is very unpleasant, yet I should have the ability to think positively from their point of view and giving them the benefit of the doubt. So these are all ways through which I am conveying my meaning to them in my daily, every act of mine has a characteristic that has come from within. So if my activities don't reflect an inner character into that, then it is just like a man on the street. You do anything, it doesn't make much difference. But we can be really rich when I bring out my inner self into the little things of life. Even environmental protection, simple things like picking up papers, litter, all these are very, very minor, not even worth mentioning it, but it has a character that I attach to it, and that comes from deep within me.
Now, Johnson, I have to say this very clearly, that the greatest thing you are doing today is, by virtue of taking care of yourself in a particular manner, you become the medium through which very life-enriching, enlightening insights flow out of you and enrich the lives of others. I mean, otherwise, I wouldn't foreground or highlight your thoughts in the manner that I'm doing now. Perhaps you are not aware of it, but I think your life is a source of enrichment to many people. And those who have read your first text on prayer, several of them have gone back to me saying how blessed they feel in having been able to read it, and they also appreciate the interaction we have had on that text as well. So I want you to be assured that you're leading a very blessed and meaningful life, and that's the reason why these insights come to you. It cannot come to you if you're leading a meaningless life. So there is this idea. In fact, this idea is quite global. If you go back to the ancient Greece, the idea of the blessed life, according to Plato, was that an individual serves as a link between the world of ideas and the world of practical life. Now, in the Christian thinking, blessedness is an individual serving as a link between the living God and fellow human beings. That's why Jesus sends his disciples out as bearers of the good news. In Hindu thought, the idea that the material world is a domain of illusion or Maya, which has, of course, very different interpretations depending on which school of the doctrine of Maya you subscribe to. But the idea that we should not really attach absolute importance to the phenomenal world, but that the one unity, which is God, Brahma, in some traditions Vishnu, in some traditions Hari, that is the ultimate reality. And blessedness of life consists in being connected to and ultimately being able to merge into the one. So the misery of human life is understood in Hindu philosophy as the shift in focus from the one to the many. From the one to the many. The material world is a world of plenty, diversity, contradiction, multiplicity, which creates a lot of confusion, conflict, burden, etc. If you want to attain peace, you have to be liberated from your subjection to the phenomenal world and find your point of stability in the one primal, eternal unity, which has neither any beginning, nor any middle, nor any end. So that's the kind of blessedness of life that they imagine. I see something common in all of this. There is this universal thirst about being able to live a meaningful life, as well as the sort of sorrowful realization that one is in oneself unequal to that great task, and therefore one needs some kind of help or empowerment. Maybe that's why Jesus said, I'll send the helper to you, the paraclete, as the Holy Spirit, to lead you into all truth. So this process continues. And I find your reflections particularly meaningful. And I have to also say, as a student of literature, that your written style is particularly enjoyable. Now, anything else that you want to add to what we have discussed before we conclude?
Yeah, you can conclude. I mean, that's pretty much everything. Which I'm thinking too much about these things. Actually, it is not worth so much. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let me add just one more point of reflection. The implied in this parable, I think there is a warning that more people can come to grief through their blessings than through their privations. It's extremely important to be able to manage the blessings of life, because it's from blessings that people go into extremely unfortunate states. So, how do we actually acquire the wisdom to manage the blessings of life, particularly the material blessings of life, properly? Now, to give it a kind of contextual historical anchor, think of Israel today. Israel is greatly blessed. Of course, they work very hard for it. They have become a regional superpower, and the consequences are there. Think of America. America is going berserk because God blessed that country in the past. I'm worried about India as it turns development into a new gospel. And in this context, I'm reminded of an English author who lived some 450 years ago, Francis Bacon, who said that if the blessing of the Old Testament was prosperity, the blessing of the New Testament is adversity. Uh, anyway, so that's why I sort of brought into our discussion the Beatitudes, the first of the Beatitudes, where Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor." Anyway, I think you have given much to our friends in this YouTube fellowship to think. And this being Sunday, I haven't posted my customary Sunday sermons. I thought of offering this as a superior substitute. So I look forward to continuing our conversations in the days ahead. And I want to thank you for being who you are and for the blessed vision of life that the good Lord has given to you. And please convey our affectionate greetings to all at home. Thank you very much. And see you
Thank you.
sometime soon.
Thank you, Professor Tambu. Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.